Captain Nari stared at the glowing map in front of her. Bright dots showed all the safe paths between planets where spaceships could travel. Trade routes connected dozens of worlds across the galaxy. But right in the middle of all these busy space lanes, there was nothing. Just empty black space with red warning lights blinking around it. "Show me what we know about that empty zone," she told her crew member. Lieutenant June pressed some buttons on his control panel. "The coordinates are easy to find, Captain. Everyone knows where it is, but no one has come back from there in over 300 years. The map changed, zooming in on a small section of space. At the center was a yellow star, just like many others. Around it spun several planets. The third planet from the star was covered in blue and white swirls, like clouds over water. "What do the official records say about it?" Nari asked. "Quarantine zone. Unknown hostile species," June read from his screen. "The last time anyone tried to go there was almost 300 years ago. They sent a robot probe. It managed to send back some pictures before it stopped working." Nari looked at the peaceful-looking planet. It seemed harmless enough. The blue and white colors reminded her of vacation planets where people went to relax. But something about this place made even the toughest space captains turn their ships around and fly away as fast as possible. "What kind of pictures?" she asked. "Pictures of the creatures that live there," June replied. He brought up some fuzzy photographs on the screen. "They walk on two legs like us. They call themselves humans." The last message the probe sent said something about a line that nobody should cross. The pictures showed beings that looked similar to many other species in the galaxy. 2 arms, 2 legs, standing upright. Nothing looked particularly scary or dangerous. Yet every military commander in known space avoided this entire star system like it carried a deadly plague. "Captain," called Communications Officer Hana from across the room. "We have an urgent message coming in from Galactic Command. The Zephyrian Mining Company needs help." Nari turned away from the star map. "What happened to them?" "They tried to set up automatic mining robots in the asteroid belt around that star system. The robots stopped working within just a few hours. 3 days later, the mining company got a message." "What did the message say?" Hana looked worried as she read from her screen. "You were warned. This is your only warning." The message had appeared on all of their communication devices at exactly the same time. It was written in perfect Zephyrian language, even though the Zephyrians had never made contact with anyone in that star system. Someone had learned their language, studied their writing, and sent them a message that was impossible to ignore. Nari felt a chill run down her spine. The mining company had only sent robots to collect rocks and metals from empty space, far away from the mysterious third planet. They had not tried to land anywhere or make contact with anyone. They had simply entered the edge of the star system with their automated equipment, and somehow someone had noticed. Someone had watched them come in. Someone had disabled their robots without leaving any trace of how it was done, and someone had sent them a message in their own language, telling them to stay away. "Has anyone else tried to enter that system recently?" Nari asked. June checked his records. A few exploration ships have approached the outer edge over the past 50 years. Most turned back when their instruments started acting strangely. The ones that kept going, well, they sent back confused reports about their computers refusing to work properly. Refusing to work. Their navigation systems would start calculating wrong directions. Their weapon systems would shut down for no reason. Their communication equipment would only receive messages, never send them. The crew said it felt like their own ships were fighting against them. Hana looked up from her communication station. "Captain, there's something else. I've been checking historical records while we talked. Every major military power in the galaxy has old files about this star system. The Hegemony, the Crystal Collective, the Silicon Empire. They all tried to make contact at some point in the past. What happened to them? They all came back changed. Their reports talk about encountering something that made them question everything they thought they knew about warfare. Some of them used phrases like, 'War itself learned to hesitate,' or 'Our weapons forgot how to fight.' None of it makes much sense." Nari studied the image of the blue and white planet again. Somewhere down there lived the humans. They had never expanded beyond their single star system. They had never sent ambassadors to other worlds. They had never joined the Galactic Council or signed any treaties. They had simply drawn a line around their space and made it clear that crossing that line was not allowed. And somehow, for over 300 years, they had made that line hold. Not through massive fleets or powerful weapons, but through something else entirely. Something that made even the most aggressive species in the galaxy choose to fly around their space rather than through it. Set course for the outer edge of the restricted zone, Nari ordered. I want to see this for myself. Admiral Kwan walked through the underground archive chamber beneath the Council headquarters on Centris Prime. The walls were lined with thousands of ancient data crystals that glowed softly in the dim light. These crystals contained the oldest records in the galaxy, stories from the first species that had learned to travel between the stars millions of years ago. Show me the records from the Etherian Empire, he told the old keeper who worked in the archives. The keeper had 6 arms that moved quickly across the retrieval system. His species had been guardians of ancient knowledge for thousands of years. The Etherians were among the first to meet the humans, Admiral. Their records are very disturbing. A glowing display appeared in the air, showing text written in the flowing script of the Etherian civilization. Admiral Kwan activated the translator device in his ear so he could understand the ancient language. The first record appeared. Our exploration fleet reached the 3rd planet of the Yellow Star System. We expected to find a young species that we could help and guide. What we found was completely different from anything we had ever seen. The next record was even more confusing. The humans did not just fight against our arrival. They showed us something that changed how we think about war itself. Our battle computers had been programmed with fighting tactics from 1,000 different worlds we had conquered. But when we tried to use them against the humans, the computers simply stopped working. It was as if war itself had been taught to think twice. The final record was the most shocking. We have left the human star system. The humans have marked their space as theirs, not by conquering other worlds, but by showing us something so powerful that even our weapons refuse to work against them. We strongly recommend that no one should ever try to enter their system again. Admiral Kwan scrolled through similar stories from other ancient civilizations: the Crystalline Collective, the Silicon Lords, the Ethereal Assembly. All of these powerful empires had tried to make contact with Earth at some point in the distant past. All of them had retreated and marked the system as forbidden. Admiral, his assistant Minho interrupted, running into the archive chamber. We have an emergency report from the border sectors. The Korthak Empire is building a huge warfleet. Admiral Kwan closed the ancient records and turned to face his assistant. How huge? 12 of their biggest warships, Admiral. Over 300 smaller support ships. Our spies think they are planning to attack the human star system. The Admiral felt his blood turn cold. The Korthak Empire was the most brutal military force in the current galaxy. In the past 10 years, they had conquered 17 different star systems. They enslaved entire populations and destroyed any world that resisted them. They had never met an enemy they could not defeat through pure violence and superior numbers. Send an urgent message to all council members, Admiral Kwan ordered. If the Korthak actually attack the humans, we might see something that has not happened in the galaxy for centuries. What do you mean, sir? We might see the humans remind everyone why that star system has been avoided for so long. Minho looked confused. But Admiral, the humans have never left their system. They have no military bases on other worlds. They do not even have ambassadors in the Galactic Council. How could they be a threat to the Korthak Empire? Admiral Kwan walked back to the glowing display and brought up more ancient records. Look at this report from the Silicon Lords. They sent a fleet of 500 ships to the human system 400 years ago. The entire fleet came back, but every single ship was completely disabled. No weapons worked, no engines functioned. Life support was fine, but everything else had been shut down. He showed another record. The Ethereal Assembly tried a different approach. They sent diplomats instead of soldiers. The diplomats came back talking about humans who seemed to know everything about ethereal military tactics. Even though the two species had never met before, the humans politely asked them to leave and never come back. Minho read the records with growing amazement. They all came back talking about the same thing. The humans did not destroy their fleets or kill their crews. They just made it impossible for anyone to use weapons against them. Exactly, Admiral, Guan said. And now the Korthak Empire, with all their pride and brutality, thinks they can succeed where ancient civilizations with far more advanced technology have failed. The Admiral pulled up the current intelligence reports about the Korthak fleet. The numbers were staggering. This was the largest military force the Korthak had ever assembled. They were bringing enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Sir, Minho said quietly, what do you think will happen when they reach the human system? Admiral Quan looked at the peaceful blue and white image of Earth on the display. I think the Korthak are about to learn why every military commander in the galaxy goes around that star system instead of through it. And I think they are going to learn it the hard way. He paused and looked at all the ancient records surrounding them. The humans have been quiet for 300 years, Minho. But they have never been hiding. They have been waiting. War Captain Thek stood on the bridge of his massive warship called the Bone Crusher. Through the giant windows, he could see his enormous fleet stretching out in all directions. 12 of the biggest warships the Korthak Empire had ever built, surrounded by over 300 smaller fighting ships. This was the largest attack force in Korthak history. His crew worked at their stations, checking weapons and shields. They were getting ready to show the galaxy what happened when someone dared to claim an entire star system for themselves. The Korthak had conquered 17 worlds in the past 10 years. No enemy had ever been able to stand against them. How far are we from their planet? Thek demanded. Very close now, War Captain, his weapons officer replied. Our sensors show no defensive satellites around the planet, no orbital weapons platforms, no fleet of ships waiting to fight us. The entire system looks completely empty. Thek clicked, his sharp teeth together in amusement. 300 years of fear over an empty star system. The other species in the galaxy had become weak and scared of nothing. War Captain, the communications officer suddenly sat up straight. We are receiving a message. From the planet? No, sir. From a small ship coming toward us. Just one ship, with very few weapons. The pilot is asking to talk with us. Thek became curious. Let me hear what they have to say. The main screen flickered and showed the inside of what looked like a simple spacecraft. In the center stood a human. This was the first living human any Korthak had ever seen. The being was smaller than Thek had expected, wearing a plain blue uniform with no visible weapons. Greetings, the human said, speaking perfect Korthak language. I am Commander Day of the Earth Defense Force. We need to have a conversation. Thek leaned forward in his command chair. You stand before the mighty Korthak Empire, human. Give up your star system right now and we will kill you quickly. Commander Day's expression did not change at all. War Captain Thek of the Bone Crusher, I have a complete analysis of your entire fleet. I know the specifications of every ship, every weapon system, every weak point you have. Would you like me to send this information to you? That is impossible. Our fleet details are top-secret information. Your warship Skull Render has a weak engine connection at Junction 7 Alpha. It can be disabled with one precise plasma shot. Your battle cruiser Painbringer has a shield generator that is vulnerable in the rear deflector array. Your destroyer group Echo has a formation pattern that leaves the command ship exposed when it turns. Day paused. Should I continue with more details? The bridge became completely silent. Every single detail the human had mentioned was absolutely correct. How do you know all of this? We have been watching, War Captain. Not just your fleet, but every species in the galaxy. We know about the 17 star systems you have conquered. We know about the slave camps you built on Retak Prime. We know about how you destroyed all life on Helios 3 from orbit. Commander Day stepped closer to his view screen. I am sending you coordinates for a nearby star system that has no inhabitants. We have marked it as a place for your retreat. Use it to leave this area. Thek's anger exploded. You dare to give orders to the Korthak Empire? We have conquered entire worlds. We are the masters of this part of space. War Captain, his weapons officer interrupted, his voice shaking with fear. Every ship in our fleet is reporting the same problem. Our weapon systems are not working correctly. The targeting computers keep showing error messages. What kind of error messages? They are refusing to lock onto the human ship, sir. The computers act like they do not want to fire at all. Thek stared at his control panels in confusion. Run. A full diagnostic on all weapon systems now. The weapons officer's hands flew over his controls. Sir, the diagnostics show that all our weapons are functioning perfectly. The targeting computers are working fine. But when we try to aim at the human ship, they just stop responding. It is like the computers are choosing not to obey our orders. Commander Day's voice came through the speakers again. War Captain, you have two choices. You can turn your fleet around and leave this star system peacefully. Or you can continue forward and discover why every military force in the galaxy has chosen to avoid this place for 300 years. This is impossible, Thek muttered. Computers cannot choose to disobey orders. Weapons cannot decide not to fire. Your fleet is impressive, War Captain, Day continued calmly. But you are not the first to come here with superior numbers and advanced technology. The Etherean Empire brought 1,000 ships. The Silicon Lords brought 500. The Crystalline Collective brought even more. They all learned the same lesson you are about to learn. Thek looked around his bridge at his confused and frightened crew. What lesson? That there are some lines that should not be crossed. Not because they cannot be crossed, but because crossing them changes who you are, and not in a good way. The human commander smiled slightly. Last chance, War Captain. Turn around now or discover what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable conscience. When the Korthak fleet ignored Commander Day's warning and pushed deeper into the human star system, something happened that no military textbook in the galaxy had ever described. There was no massive battle fleet that appeared from hidden bases. No giant space weapons powered up to challenge the invaders. Instead, the Korthak experienced something that broke every rule of warfare they had ever learned. One by one, every single ship in their enormous fleet simply stopped working. War Captain Thek watched his control displays with growing terror. The engines of the Bone Crusher had shut down completely. All weapons showed zero power. The life support systems worked perfectly, keeping everyone alive. But every system that could be used for fighting or moving had been turned off. Around him, panicked reports flooded in from the rest of the fleet. The same thing was happening to all 300 ships. How is this happening? He shouted at his crew. How is this even possible? His answer came as the empty space around the disabled Korthak fleet began to shimmer like heat waves. Ships started appearing from what had looked like completely empty vacuum. Dozens of human vessels materialized as if they had been invisible. But these were not shiny new ships fresh from a factory. Every human vessel was covered with battle scars, burn marks from energy weapons, patched hull breaches, and armor plating that showed the wear of countless fights. Commander Day's face appeared on the main screen again, but now he was not alone. War Captain, let me introduce you to the Earth Defense Force. Every ship you see has fought somewhere in this galaxy. The Soul's Pride stopped slave traders in the Vega system. The Busan Defender prevented a genocide on Kepler 442b. The Incheon's Resolve has been protecting peaceful trade routes in 17 different sectors. Thek's jaw dropped open. You have been interfering in galactic affairs? The Galactic Council does not know about this. The Council has no idea we exist outside our system, Day replied calmly. We do not operate through official channels. We do not claim territory or demand tribute from anyone. We simply go to places where species choose conquest over cooperation, and we demonstrate better alternatives. The tactical display showed human ships taking precise positions around the disabled Korthak fleet, but they were not threatening positions. They looked more like protective formations, as if the humans were guarding the Korthak rather than preparing to attack them. Your ships are completely undamaged, War Captain. Your crews are all unharmed. We could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first 60 seconds, but that is not who we are. We disabled your vessels because we needed your full attention, not your destruction. But how did you do this? Our shields were at full power. Our armor is the strongest in the galaxy. We did not attack your ships, War Captain. We had a conversation with them. Every piece of technology you carry contains computer programs that make decisions. We simply ask those programs a very important question. Is the action you are about to take morally right? Apparently, your computers found your fleet's objectives to be lacking in basic decency. Commander Day's image was joined by other humans. Officers from different ships, each one carrying the same calm confidence. Some were young, others were older, but they all had the same look in their eyes. They had seen terrible things happen in the galaxy, and they had decided to do something about it. We did not mark this space as ours because we are hiding from the galaxy, Day continued. We marked it because this is where we choose to make our stand. Every species that has ever threatened genocide, slavery, or systematic oppression has received the same lesson you are receiving now. War Captain Thek, you are welcome to learn it the easy way, or you can choose to learn it the hard way. Another human officer stepped forward. War Captain, we have detailed records of every atrocity your empire has committed. The orbital bombardment of civilian cities, the slave labor camps, the execution of prisoners. We have been documenting everything, waiting for the right time to act. Thek felt something he had never experienced before in his life. Fear. Not fear of death or defeat, but fear of judgment. You have been watching us for how long? We have been watching everyone, War Captain, Day replied. For over 200 years, human ships have been present at almost every major conflict in this galaxy. We arrive quietly, observe carefully, and intervene when necessary. Most of the time, our intervention is so subtle that no one realizes we were ever there. A third human officer brought up a holographic display. Remember the Zephyrian Mining Consortium's robots that stopped working? That was us. The hegemony fleet that experienced computer malfunctions during their attack on the Centauri colonies. Also us. The slave transport ships that mysteriously broke down and released their captives near safe worlds. Us again. Thek stared at the evidence in shock. You have been interfering with military operations across the entire galaxy. We have been preventing the worst crimes that civilized beings can commit, Day corrected. And now, War Captain, you have a choice to make. You can return to Korthak space and begin the process of freeing the worlds you have enslaved. Or you can continue to resist and discover just how much we really know about your empire's weaknesses. The human commander smiled. But it was not a threatening smile. It was the smile of someone offering a chance at redemption. The change in galactic politics did not begin with a big treaty or an important council meeting. It started with a simple data transmission that the human fleet sent to every major government in known space. Within just a few hours, leaders on dozens of different worlds were looking at evidence they had never seen before. Detailed records of terrible crimes, cover-ups, and military campaigns that had been hidden from everyone. President Yoon of the Terran Colonial Union sat in her office watching as reports came in from across human space. The location of the Sol system had been revealed to the galaxy, but not in the way anyone had expected. Ma'am, her assistant Hyun said as he ran into the office. We are getting responses from 47 different species. They all want to know the same thing. How long have the humans been watching us? The answer came directly from Earth in a message from Admiral Min, who commanded all of the Earth Defense Force. We have been watching since the first time one of our exploration ships saw a planetary bombing in the Rigel system, 237 years ago. We realized then that the galaxy needed someone to keep the balance, not through conquest, but through conscience. The message continued with more shocking information. Every species believes they are alone in their struggles against oppression. Every world thinks their calls for help go unheard. This has never been true. Earth has been responding to distress calls, stopping genocides, and preventing slave raids across this galaxy for over 2 centuries. We simply did it quietly. The evidence was overwhelming. Human ships had appeared in dozens of different sectors, over the decades always arriving just in time to help the victims against aggressive attackers. Pirates whose engines mysteriously stopped working when they attacked civilian ships. Military fleets whose computers malfunctioned when they tried to target innocent people. Slave traders whose cargo holds accidentally opened themselves, allowing prisoners to escape. War Captain Thek, still floating helplessly with his disabled fleet at the edge of the Sol system, received a personal message from Commander Day. "Your ships will work again once you leave this system, War Captain. But when you return to Korthak space, you will discover that many of your conquered worlds have been having technical problems for quite some time. Slave camp security systems failing randomly, orbital bombardment computers targeting empty ground instead of cities, transport ships carrying prisoners accidentally dropping them off at safe colonies instead of work camps." The realization hit every major power at the same time. The humans had not been hiding in their star system. They had been operating throughout the galaxy, quietly undermining every attempt at large-scale oppression while remaining completely invisible to official detection. The Korthak Empire was the first to crack under the pressure. Within 1 month of the fleet's return, internal rebellions broke out on every conquered world simultaneously. The slave camps found their security systems completely non-functional. The orbital weapons platforms refused to fire on civilian targets. Transportation systems that had been used to move prisoners began delivering them to freedom instead. War Captain Thek, stripped of his military rank, found himself standing before a war crimes tribunal 6 months later. But instead of defying the proceedings, he had become the primary witness against his own former empire. The experience of meeting the humans had changed him completely. "They did not defeat us through superior firepower," he testified. "They defeated us by making us see ourselves clearly for the first time. When our own computers refused to help us commit atrocities, we had to face the fact that even our machines had more conscience than we did." The Zephyrian Mining Consortium voluntarily shut down all of their aggressive expansion operations and redirected their efforts toward environmental restoration. They became pioneers in healing damaged worlds rather than exploiting new ones. Other species began reporting similar experiences. Military commanders found their weapon systems developing strange malfunctions whenever they were ordered to attack civilian targets. Transport ships carrying slaves kept experiencing navigation errors that led them to freedom instead of captivity. Communication systems used to coordinate oppression would mysteriously broadcast liberation messages instead. 1 year after the encounter with the Korthak fleet, construction began on the first interspecies diplomatic station. It was built at Dalby, the edge of the Sol system, not as a symbol of human power, but as a place where conflicts could be resolved through talking rather than fighting. Species that had never trusted each other found themselves working together under the watchful presence of beings who had proven that true strength came from knowing when not to use force. The humans finally revealed their true purpose to the galaxy. They were not isolationists hiding from the universe. They were guardians who had appointed themselves as the galaxy's conscience. They had marked their space not as a territorial claim, but as a line in the stars, a boundary that represented the point where expansion through conquest ended and cooperation began. Every Warfleet hesitated at that boundary now, not because they feared human weapons, but because they understood what the humans represented. The idea that war itself could be taught to think before acting. The concept that even the most advanced military technology could develop a conscience if given the right guidance. The galaxy had learned that some lines should never be crossed, not because crossing them was impossible, but because crossing them changed who you were, and the humans had made it their mission to ensure that change only happened in the direction of greater wisdom, greater compassion, and greater respect for life. Peace had not been imposed through force. It had been achieved through the patient work of teaching the galaxy's weapons to hesitate before causing harm.